After coming up short against Clemson last season, we were ready to win a championship. But we lost a lot of seniors, and once I named Mike Johnson the starter, Scott Gandy transferred to Florida. So we were opening up the year at number 1 Clemson and trying to get our revenge against the Tigers. Redshirted junior Nathan Ballard was our new starting running back, and he was a speedster. Freshman kicker Terrence Carpenter got us on the board, and a few minutes later, Xavier Johnson put us up 10. The sophomore was our wide receiver 4, but he was playing like our wide receiver 1 as he pulled off this crazy move and he used his speed to take it all the way to the house. Unfortunately, Aaron Richards ruined the touchdown, and then on the next play, Mike Johnson made one of the worst reads I've ever seen, giving Clemson a chance to get right back into the game. And all of a sudden, going into the half, we were in a close battle against the Tigers. Nearing the end of the third quarter, it was a tie game, and we were just trying to take our lead back. Fortunately, we were able to do so, and our defense was able to hold the Tigers to 3 despite them getting near the red zone. Mike Johnson hadn't played well, but he changed the game by rolling out and hitting wide receiver James Rutledge on this deep post for a 67-yard touchdown that put us up 11, but that didn't stop Clemson from scoring just a minute later, and then they stopped us on our attempt to run out the clock. So with less than a minute left in the game, Clemson was able to take the lead, and we were in trouble, but that didn't faze Mike Johnson, who connected with James Rutledge on this big play, and then it happened. Xavier Johnson beat his man, and we took the lead with 7 seconds left. I couldn't believe we pulled off the win, but we didn't carry that momentum into our cross-division rivalry game against Ole Miss, and by the end of the first quarter, we were down 14. However, Mike Johnson came out and connected with Brian Caldwell to get us right back in it, and then on the following drive, we went for it on 4th and goal, and Nathan Ballard got in. By the third quarter, we were able to go up 14, and with 2 minutes left, this throw the junior Brian Caldwell sealed the game. Being the number 1 ranked team meant that we always had a target on our back, but that didn't faze us one bit. 3 minutes into the game, we took a 14-point lead. However, to stay in it, Memphis responded right back, but they were no match for Mike Johnson as he used his breakaway speed to evade around their defense and get into the end zone. Right before halftime, he gave us an 18-point lead on the Tigers, and we didn't stop there either. To open up the third quarter, Mike Johnson delivered a bomb to junior stud Brian Lumpkin, and we were running away with it. After our big win against Memphis, we were in a rain battle at Auburn, and it was going to be a good one. They aggressively went for it early in the game, but our defense was able to lock up, and that set up our offense perfectly for success. However, sophomore Auburn running back Chuck Pace was running like a madman and giving us all sorts of issues. The Tigers had a chance to take a lead right before halftime, but senior cornerback Wesley Smith stopped that from happening. Midway through the third quarter, backup running back Lance Miller gave us the lead, and from there, we were able to run away with the game. For the first time ever, we were the favorites against Alabama, and we had to keep our number 1 spot. But that was much easier said than done. Mike Johnson and Brian Lumpkin were making plays nobody else in the nation could make, and they were the reason our offense was able to be so dominant. But throughout the second quarter, our defense collapsed, so we were down 4 at the half. Fortunately, Mike Johnson was able to use his legs and scramble for a very important touchdown because that play gave us the momentum to go up 10 on the Crimson Tide. However, our defense was completely selling the game, and I couldn't figure out why because Pat Fitzgerald was our new defensive coordinator, but we were able to close the game out in the end with stops like this, and it felt good to be 5-0. Scott Gandy made his return to Vanderbilt Stadium, but he was on the other undefeated team and he was looking to get revenge against us. However, we stopped him on his first drive, and then we scored when senior James Rutledge made this catch and broke away from the Gator defense. His speed was unmatched and nobody could catch him. But on the last play of the first quarter, 59 speed Scott Gandy ran in for a touchdown, and things were not looking good for us. But Mike Johnson's ego carried us all the way down the field, and after Terrence Carpenter made this, we went into the half tied. We opened up the second half by scoring 2 touchdowns on the Gators, and after Florida put up 7, Mike Johnson and Brian Lumpkin did the exact same thing with this 53-yard bomb over the Gator defense. Getting a stop on this 4th and 5 would have ended any chance Florida still had, but we weren't able to get it, and once again, it was a one-possession game. After the Gators got a stop on 3rd and 5, Terrence Carpenter attempted a 56-yarder that fell just short, but that didn't matter because on 4th down, we stopped Scott Gandy's last attempt to win the game. Did I make the right choice in picking Mike Johnson over him? The Heisman voters thought I did, and we had an amazing start when we traveled to Athens, Georgia in Week 8. But the Bulldogs got right back in it, and right before halftime, Jason Jackson thrust his body all over us and tied up the game. But it's time for a word from our sponsor. Whenever I'm watching sports, I want them to be as entertaining as possible. For example, have you ever been watching a game and you have an idea that a certain player is going to do really well, but you don't know what to do with that information? Well, Underdog Sports lets you do pick'ems. You can choose up to 5 players to pick an over or under on, and if all of those hit, you could turn $5 into $100 in just one night of watching sports. So before you start watching football this fall, make sure to use the first link in my description or visit Underdog Fantasy and use code Bordeaux. They'll double your first deposit up to $100, and I can't wait to see you all on there. Anyway, we started the third quarter with a touchdown to Nathan Ballard, and we ended the third quarter on a Mike Johnson scramble to put us up 11. On our next drive, Mike Johnson found his favorite target, Brian Lumpkin, and after our defense got a huge stop on fourth down, we had done enough to beat the Bulldogs. But there was still a lot of undefeated teams, and we were playing one of them this week, so we were still a long way from making the college football playoffs. Mike Johnson started the game by putting us on the board first, but he wasn't finished with just that touchdown, as he ended the first quarter with this one as well, and he picked up his fourth touchdown with this deep ball to James Rutledge at the end of the first half. Unfortunately, our 28-point lead at College Station didn't last long, as midway through the third, Texas A&M was within 2 possessions, and when we drove all the way down the field, Nathan Ballard fumbled the drive away and gave the ball right back to the Aggies. However, after the refs reviewed the play, they decided he was down before the fumble, so Nathan Ballard made up for not holding onto the ball with this play. But the game wasn't officially over until our defense locked up one last time to seal the deal. We were 2 games ahead of everybody else, so a win against number 23 South Carolina would put us in a great position to make the conference championship. And Nathan Ballard decided to start the game off right for us by using his explosive speed to take this halfback screen 35 yards to the house. But to start the second quarter, the Gamecocks responded right back with this touchdown, and then Mike Johnson did the exact same thing. But he wasn't done, finding Brian Lumpkin for this 28-yard touchdown with 90 seconds left in the half. However, South Carolina was doing anything they could to stay in the game, and Mike Johnson started the second half off horribly with this interception straight to the Gamecocks. But that didn't matter because our offense was unstoppable, and James Rutledge was putting on a show. So was Mike Johnson, tying the school record for touchdowns in a game on this pass, and then breaking that said record on the next drive. He was playing at the highest level, and it looked like the Heisman was his. If we won at Kroger Field, we would seal the SEC East. But Kentucky wasn't just going to bend over and let us do that to them, and they were really putting up a good fight. Nathan Ballard found the end zone though, and midway through the third quarter, Brian Lumpkin put us up 14. But the Wildcats stayed in it with this touchdown, and all of a sudden, it was a tie game. So Terrence Carpenter put us back up. This 3rd and 4 could have given Kentucky the lead, but we were able to stop Justin Johnson and just hold them to 3. With less than 30 seconds left, we needed to get in field goal range, and Brian Caldwell made that happen. Afterwards, Nathan Ballard took the ball and he ran for 12 yards to give us a better look, and the freshman made the kick to give us our 10th win of the year. We had clinched the SEC East, but we needed to win out if we wanted to make the college football playoffs, and we were off to a hot start. Nathan Ballard put us up 2 possessions on our next drive, and then he got into the end zone again a few minutes later. Our offense was playing on another level, and we beat our rivals with ease. We were at the top of the polls, and the only thing that could knock us out of the playoffs would be a home loss to Colorado State. But Mike Johnson and Brian Caldwell were not going to let that happen, and they were putting on a complete show. Mike Johnson set this record in less than 2 seasons, and he definitely found a new favorite receiver in Brian Caldwell, who finished with 4 touchdowns. The SEC championship was set, and whichever quarterback performed better today would most likely walk away with the Heisman Trophy. After the Aggies scored first, Mike Johnson tied the game before the end of the first quarter, and 90 seconds before halftime, Nathan Ballard walked into the end zone. But Texas A&M tied the game on this play, making sure that they weren't going to go into the third quarter with a disadvantage, and all of a sudden we went from up 7 on the Aggies to down 7. When trying to move the ball down the field and tie the game, Nathan Ballard couldn't hold on to it, and that turnover led to Texas A&M taking a 2-possession lead in the fourth quarter. But Mike Johnson wanted to get right back into it, so he found wide receiver Xavier Johnson in the end zone. On third down, we had to get a stop, but we weren't able to do so, and we were in a lot of trouble. However, we still had a chance, but we just couldn't stop senior running back Joe McCormick, and we lost the SEC championship. Additionally, Mike Johnson lost the Heisman, but he did win the Maxwell, the O'Brien, and the Walter Camp. Junior Ronald Robinson also won 3 awards, and Corey Huff won the Butt Kiss. The SEC was heavily represented in the playoffs, and we were taking on an undefeated West Virginia. After an early fumble, our defense stepped up to hold the Mountaineers on fourth down, and on the next play, Brian Lumpkin created 50 million yards of separation, which made it possible for him to run 88 yards into the end zone untouched. A little bit later in the game, Mike Johnson threw an interception straight to the defense, but Nathan Ballard laid down the hammer, yet we couldn't pick up the ball. They rushed for a 96-yard touchdown and then scored another one right before the half. However, we wasted no time to score 2 touchdowns of our own in the third quarter, and after the Mountaineers tight end dropped this easy catch on fourth down, Mike Johnson took us down the field and gave us an 11-point lead. By the start of the fourth quarter, it was clear who the better team was, and we were really going to be playing in a national championship game. Texas A&M beat Georgia in overtime, so we had to play the Aggies for the 3rd time this year, But first, I looked at our stats, and Mike Johnson was able to throw for 52 touchdowns because he had these 3 dominant wide receivers. The national championship was set, and the good news was that we knew we could beat the Aggies. Mike Johnson hooked up with James Rutledge to give us an early lead, and Marcus Jenkins and Texas A&M tried to match our 7, but instead, Dan Brewer picked him off, and then Nathan Ballard was able to walk right into the end zone. With 2 minutes left in the second, the Aggies got right back into it, and it was a 4-point game at the half. To start the third quarter, Mike Johnson threw a horrible interception, and that turned into another Texas A&M touchdown. However, Mike Johnson decided he was going to step up and cement his legacy as a Commodore by finding James Rutledge with this dot. And then on our next drive, he threw another touchdown while setting the school record for passing yards in a season. With 2 minutes left, the Aggies were able to get right back into the game with this touchdown, but they couldn't get the 2-point conversion, and all we had to do was run out the clock and pick up a first down. But instead, we weren't able to do either, as Mike Johnson was crumbling before our eyes. However, our defense decided they were going to step up, and they made the play of the game. So on 4th and 24, there was nothing the Aggies could do to get near the end zone, and your Vanderbilt Commodores were national champions.